Why 100 years ago there were more electric cars than gasoline ones. Few people realize that more than a century ago, electric cars weren't a futuristic dream. They were already on the roads, and in many cities, they actually outnumbered gasoline vehicles. Long before Elon Musk and Tesla, the United States went through an electric car boom that shaped the future of transportation in surprising ways. The early spark. The idea of an electric vehicle goes back as early as the 1830s, when Scottish inventor Robert Anderson created a crude motorized carriage. The catch? Its batteries couldn't be recharged, making it completely impractical. But everything changed in 1859, when rechargeable batteries became available. By the 1890s, inventors on both sides of the Atlantic were experimenting with electric-powered prototypes. One of the first real breakthroughs came in Des Moines, Iowa, when William Morrison built a 6-passenger electric wagon. It could travel at about 14 miles per hour, not fast by today's standards, but revolutionary at the time. The car was quiet, clean, and didn't need to be hand-cranked like noisy, smelly gasoline vehicles. For city dwellers, especially women, electric cars quickly became the preferred choice. The golden age of electrics. By the dawn of the 20th century, America's roads were filled with a mix of steam, gasoline, and electric cars. Surprisingly, gasoline was the minority. In 1900, about 1/3 of all vehicles in the US were electric, 40% ran on steam, and only 22% used gasoline. In cities like New York, Boston, and London, electric taxi fleets were already operating. In fact, by 1912, electric cars accounted for 38% of all US vehicles. Their advantages were obvious. Electrics were quiet, clean, and easy to drive. Women were often featured in ads behind the wheel of electric cars, while gasoline models were marketed more toward men who didn't mind the mess of cranking engines and dealing with exhaust fumes. Electric cars didn't require gears, produced no smoke, and were considered almost luxury tech for city travel. Even famous inventors and industrialists saw their potential. Thomas Edison worked on developing better batteries and even partnered with Henry Ford for a time to create a practical electric car. In Germany, Ferdinand Porsche designed one of the first gasoline-electric hybrids in 1898, an ancestor of today's Prius. The fall, Ford's Model T and cheap oil. So why did electric cars disappear? The answer lies in a perfect storm of technology, economics, and oil. In 1908, Henry Ford introduced the Model T, thanks to assembly line production. Its price dropped to just $650 by 1912, while an electric car cost around $1,750, nearly 3 times more. That same year, gasoline cars got an electric starter, eliminating the need for dangerous hand cranks. Suddenly, gas-powered vehicles became cheaper, easier to operate, and much more appealing. Infrastructure also played a role. Electricity was spreading through American cities, but rural areas, the majority of the country, had little to no access. A farmer could fill up a gas tank anywhere, but finding a charging station outside of New York or Chicago was nearly impossible. As the 1920s arrived, road networks improved. Americans wanted to travel farther, and gasoline was abundant thanks to new oil discoveries in Texas. By the 1930s, most electric car makers had vanished. One of the last survivors, Detroit Electric, shut down in 1939. Gasoline had won, and the oil industry became one of the most powerful forces in the global economy. Attempts at revival. Electric cars never completely disappeared. They popped up occasionally, usually as experiments or niche projects, but the real comeback began in the 1990s. Concerns about oil dependence and pollution pushed automakers to try again. General Motors launched the EV1, a sleek two-seater that developed a cult following but was ultimately pulled from the market. A bigger breakthrough came in 1997, when Toyota introduced the Prius, the world's first mass-produced hybrid. It wasn't fully electric, but it proved that consumers were ready for greener alternatives. The Tesla era and beyond. The real revolution, however, came with Tesla. By focusing on performance, long-range batteries, and advanced technology, Tesla changed how people viewed electric cars. No longer were they seen as slow, impractical city vehicles. They became status symbols, luxury sedans, and even sports cars. Today, nearly every major automaker is racing to produce electric vehicles. Battery technology is improving rapidly. Charging networks are expanding across highways, and prices are gradually becoming more competitive. Consumers are increasingly aware of climate change, air pollution, and limited fossil fuels, which all make EVs more appealing. History repeats itself. In the early 1900s, electric cars were fashionable, modern, and widely used in cities. Then gasoline took over for nearly a century. Now, in the 21st century, history has come full circle. Once again, electric cars are in style, only this time they may be here to stay. Also watch a video about why an astronaut won't be saved if he's left to drift in space, or about what would happen if all people disappeared from Earth. Go and watch our other videos, they're also very interesting.